This is part 2 of NDE Talk Blue Beings. In the first part, I spoke about Kaylin, Thomas, and Marilyn's experiences. And in this part, I'll speak about Crystal N and Alma B. And we're going to start with Crystal N's experience. And her cause of NDE was surgery related. The earliest part of my experience started from pure blackness and peace. Shortly after the blackness, I appeared into this place. Everything about it was alive and breathing. The walls, the floor, everything. There were these amazing bright lights everywhere within the walls and floor that moved with the breathing of this place. I stood in the middle watching these bright white beings enter and exit the archways. I was surrounded by archways in this huge dome that I could not even see the top of. I was approached by 3 blue beings. They were pure love and had no features or sexual identity. They were just this vivid blue human-like form. As they approached me, 2 of them stopped a few feet away as the other continued towards me. This being used no verbal words nor human language to communicate with me. It was more like frequency sounds and colors. This being came to my right side and put its hand on my shoulder. With its other arm, it motioned me to look around me. As I looked, I was told this is the place of the soul's birth and departure. I watched as souls came and went in and out of these archways that spanned beyond my vision. I was shown by the beings all my lifetimes my soul's purpose and saw and knew that I had been here and through these archways many times. It felt like home to me. I was told by the being that I would return to my body to complete my work, that I had work to do still. I was shown an archway and was told to follow the white being that was about to go through it. In an instant, I was at that archway. The next instant, I had awoken in the operation room. The first thing I said was, "Put me back!" I'm sure the doctors had no idea what I was talking about. Okay, so that was Crystal's experience. And now let's move on to the final one for this grouping, and that's Alma B, and it's a little longer. Okay, Alma B, her cause of NDE is a little more intricate. It says accident, illness, surgery related, drug or medical overdose, life-threatening event. So she was going through a few different things there. Okay, so beginning here is, okay. I am in a short void of what appears to be silver gray, very light gray. Then I see that I am standing on a ground that is not earth. I know I have just passed to the other side. I am raptured by the diamond-like ground with what looks to be quartz crystal, white marble, and even something that appears to be see-through glass. On the majority of the ground, there were protruding diamonds that stood tall, smooth, and glistened so much that I did not want to take my eyes away from this ground. Being the very curious person I had always been by nature, I looked up to see what else was there. To my left, I saw a huge crystal blue sky, a beautiful waterfall with some vibrant green grass around its edges. I saw a huge stone gate that led to what I believed was Heaven's Gate. I looked how far this gate extended, and it appeared to morph into forever. I then heard a voice talking to me. It was the sound of a boom of authority and sweet loving kindness at the same time. It said, "You are here because you have come to me often." I immediately knew all the prayers I had ever prayed had paid off. I had prayed constantly as a child, preteen, and teen of severe physical and emotional abuses, and at times depression. I was in a garden of heaven that was at the foot of the entry gate. My body was with a high fever this particular day and had been iced in the hospital several times to bring my fever down. In my NDE, I observed the gate of heaven and the narrow, golden, chiseled path that led to it. I saw the different ground under the path, which was not the large diamond-like ground I was standing in. I was picked up by an angel by the back of my body and taken to the waterfall. I was laid at the foot of the waterfall. The most minuscule touch of my left little finger touched the water that was not really water. It looked like gel with the diamond-like colors emanating from it. I felt my fever immediately leave my body. I was then picked up by this angel and brought back to where I had been standing. I saw my maternal grandmother to my right. She was with three other relatives that I recognized. To my left is my paternal grandmother and three relatives on my father's side, who I recognized. My father seemed to want my attention and moved from the maternal side to the paternal side. Nobody was smiling, and I thought, I am going to have a harsh judgment from God. I can take it. I am here in the garden and will take any judgment and accept all my sins as a choice I made when I could have done better. Maybe God will understand what I went through while alive. After greeting my relatives and knowing I had serious work to do with being judged, I stood very straight and tall like a soldier. There was a huge orb of the glistening eye of God that was hovering in front of me. It was so large and filled with the light of diamonds and bright white. I said, I am ready. I know I did bad things. You can judge me now. This huge orb of light, the glistening eye of God, told me to be still. It then told me to turn my head and look to my right. In a millisecond, my head was already looking to the right. I saw several blue human-like beings with auras of yellow coming out from their heads, shoulders, and bodies. Immediately, I thought that we had all passed away at the same time and that I was holding up people in the line to be judged. After judgment, I would eventually enter that gate and wanted to enter it very much. I turned my head to the glisten of the eye and said, I am holding up the line. The glisten then poured an indescribable amount of its white diamond-like light onto me. The light was all love, only love, and pure love. It repeated, be still, you belong to me. It then told me to turn to my left. I was then immediately looking to my left. I saw the same human-like beings of beautiful blue. There were rows and rows and hundreds of them. I again said to the glistening eye of God, I am holding up the line. The glistening eye of God said again, be still. I was showered with more light from it, and it was all love, pure, pure love. I could feel my body was erect, tall, and not diseased like on earth. Again, the orb told me to look to my right. Again, I am looking to my right, and I hear from it, look closer. I then saw for the first time that these are humans I may have known or some I had met. I was then told that I would meet some of these people in the front rows. I saw that they were all made of a sturdy membrane that outlined their entire bodies. The membrane glowed the yellow aura, and the people were all water, like a bathtub filled with pure water. I gave a slight wave of acknowledgement that they were water, was registered as I answered in telepathy that I now understood who these water beings were. The orb seemed to be pleased, and then I said, you can judge me now. Maybe you did not like when I said that I did bad things. I will change my wording to I did wrong things. This huge glistening eye of God then showered me with more healing light, said more things to me, and repeated, be still. I was not sure why I am not being judged. I wanted so much to walk through that gate ahead of me. I could hear the activity behind that huge gate to heaven. The glistening eye of God then showed me for a minute or two what was beyond the gate to heaven. They were beautiful souls, all talking about us on earth and how to help us. The first thing I witnessed was an oval table of light. These souls were talking about individuals because I heard comments like, she and he need. We have this in place for her and him. The next table was larger, and those souls talked in a way that I understood that they were helping groups. The third table of light has more souls around it, and they also spoke about groups, and I could sense strongly the seriousness at that table. All I wanted was to be able to start my walk into heaven and do whatever job was waiting for me. I had always said to God, I am so worthless, and if you let me in heaven, I will sweep the floors forever and ever. My attention was brought back to where I was still standing on the diamond-like ground. Even with all that I had been shown, I still say to the glistening eye of God, I am taking up time and some want to talk with you. I had heard some of the blue human beings in the right front row tell me that they could not hear what the large orb of light was saying. I looked at my right and left, saw my relatives smiling just a little. I believed that I would now be allowed in. At this moment, I am filled with anticipation that the judgment must be good. When I start walking down that little golden path towards the gate to heaven, I heard by telepathy and eye contact when my relatives were saying to me that I am doing fine. Suddenly, the huge white orb of the glistening eye of God dims, and a huge golden yellow orb comes out from its right. I immediately sense that it is the light of Jesus. I am bathed in this golden yellow light and healed and healed and healed even more. I cannot speak. It tells me, I love you. Its rays touched my body, and I thought I would somehow be transported up those rays. They touched me, and then the golden yellow orb went back into the first huge white orb, the glistening eye of God. A stone ledge then came out of the sky, and a moving art drawing of my life is presented to me. Then another and another. I was having a life review. The drawings where I was moving in them were showing me that I was kind to people at different ages of my life. The first moving drawing was me at about 2 years of age chasing a butterfly that was teasing me to chase it. I was giggling and having fun playing with this butterfly. I had a pinafore edge dress on, and I was in a park running with delight of being a little girl. I look at my maternal grandmother and paternal grandmother. They are smiling a little more now, and I feel I have been made as ready as possible. I feel both grandmothers raise their arms to lightly guide me to start walking down the golden path. Everything goes into a void-like second, though I see silver gray essence of some sort. I looked up and saw the bright white glistening eye of God once again. I watched it leave like a balloon slowly drifting away into space. It tells me one last thing I hear audibly, like an everyday human talking. Continue to do what you have been doing. I believed it meant that I had been doing a good job of being a passed over soul. It disappears as I follow all its light. I see it as it leaves completely, and I am still staring at the ceiling of my hospital room. I immediately felt two opposite human feelings at the very same time. I was fully aware that they were opposite, something I had not experienced before or had forgotten if I had. These feelings were that of complete grief that I had been allowed into the garden of heaven and was in joy. It was a new joy that I had never felt in this lifetime. I knew I had just experienced something phenomenal and extraordinary. The following weeks were filled with my telling everyone I knew what had happened. I have not stopped talking about this NDE. It is my joy, it is my new life, it is my gift and the reason I want to live. Simply to share the story that we are so incredibly made and loved by the all there is love, God. So I'd like to just add a few quick notes on these 5 stories. Just for my research, I noticed that the colors blue, so like, violet and purple are like the highest chakras or tend to be very spiritual colors. There are many gods in the Hindu and Egyptian pantheon who have blue skin, and the color blue is said to be a spiritual color. In Michael Newton's books, he mentions the soul colors or the colors of the soul, and the last 2 or the top 2 for the more higher advanced beings are in the blue and purple spectrum. So I just wanted to mention that before I get into this. But so for Kaylin's story, Kaylin K, I really just, this was a little mind-boggling for me. It's definitely something different. But I do think it's interesting that she could recognize her grandmother, that her grandmother and a few others were ladies in bright white. I don't know if it means a bright white light or bright white clothing, and that the fact that they were playing with snow was interesting. But it does feel as if the blue trees and the blue beings were at a barrier, to prevent her from going into heaven or the afterlife, whatever that was. And I feel like a lot of the blue beings tend to be, you can think guardians, spirit guides, the workers, the beings that are more advanced and who are managing our experience here and maybe in the hereafter. And this kind of confirmed that idea. Also, I noticed that a lot of people create, well, not say create, but have these landscapes or these places, whether it's a hologram or it's real, that it's almost like they are created just for them in the afterlife. And I've heard this idea that we do create our own heaven and our own hells. And this would kind of confirm that maybe the landscape that she saw on the other side of that is her home after each respective life. So that's the bulk of my ideas on Kaylin's story. Then Thomas B, he probably should have been a whole video in itself. Like, this is one of the most exceptional NDEs I've ever heard. And with Thomas B, the beings weren't completely blue per se. Like, I did question if I should add this or not. It seems as if they are maybe see-through, But I've also heard ones, there's another one at the end where they're like water beings. So it's like this water plasma kind of like gel type substance encased in a human form. And I kind of felt like that's what he was expressing as well. So that's why I put it in this. But his is spectacular because of the chakras. I've very rarely heard this where people can visibly see the chakra. Well, he's not saying it's chakras. I don't know that that was part of his language, but he's saying colors in their core. And to me, that personally, I just, all I see is the chakra, the chakra system, the lights of the different energy centers there, especially with blue being in the head area that he said. So that would make sense and line up with the third eye chakra. So with his story, the things that kind of jump out at me is the fact that it seemed like he's still behind the scenes. Like, it almost feels like the Wizard of Oz and seeing behind the curtain, you know. He's going through his life review. He screams no, like he makes that decision not to do this really bad thing. And then it's somehow a yellow light coming from his chest is big too, because that coincides with the solar plexus chakra. But that light just blasting at this being that he didn't even know was there, and all of a sudden he's seeing this whole other world behind what he was supposed to be focusing on at the time, like what was being portrayed in front of him, which was the life review. So this to me was like one of those behind the scenes. Like, I get really excited about NDEs like this, because is that really real? Like, are we all, when we're going through this process, just really being, not to say manipulated, but just shown what we're is being managed, is probably the best way to say it, by other beings. And are these beings these blue beings? And are they really benevolent, or are they not? If they're benevolent, then, this is part of some system that hopefully we signed up for, and it's okay. And if it's not, that's a whole nother ball game. So the fact that they kept saying that you are welcome, you're safe, you're here, you're loved, that was interesting. But a lot of times it's very rare for these blue beings to be seen as anything other than loving and benevolent and calming and peaceful. So, that was another interesting part of it. And then the massive being, I think in most people's minds, immediately you think is this massive giant of a being, you think God automatically. And I would have thought that as well, especially when he showed himself as, and it just shows a shape-shifting ability, but showed himself as the old man with the beard. That's kind of what people even say, like, oh, God's on a cloud, or, old man and with the beard. So I said, okay, is he trying to look like God? So is that what he would say he's portraying as? Or was he trying to be portrayed as Santa Claus? That came to mind too for a while. And then the last thought was just, okay, well, he was communicating with someone. I don't know that the creator of all would need to be communicating or getting, the approval of someone else. So that just really threw that whole idea out of play for me. And so I'm right back to wondering who this being is. And it kind of also just kind of supports the idea that what people say is that there are higher level advanced beings that are kind of managing us, or, whether it's good or bad, but they are not God itself. It's just higher level beings. Okay, and as for Marilyn L's experience, was very fast, and it does coincide with a lot with the pop. People hear a pop when the soul is leaving the body. The tunnel makes sense. The being white and blue, it's just, I guess, her determination of what color was. But yeah, a lot of that could make sense. I think the biggest question, and it being male and female, made of goodness, happiness, this is what a lot, when it comes to whoever and whatever is managing this experience, when they consider these higher level beings or angels or something like that, they always are that, the dual sex, and or neither sex actually, and are loving and peaceful, and they just have that whole energy. And I think so the biggest thing with her was just what it said. Like, this stayed in my mind for days, and I wonder if it did for you as well. But to hear that the reason for pain is love, what on earth? Like, what are we really in right here? It could go back to contrast that, we need to experience all this pain here so that we can fully understand and maybe even appreciate the love that's on the other side. Is that it? And then what comes to mind is, was it Sandy? Was Sandy's, let me give you her last name. Yeah, so Sandy T's NDE's number 9082 on a NDERF website, she mentions that she was given the answer by yet another, another being, that the reason for the suffering and the pain, especially for her, she was going through an extremely traumatic life, that the reason for the pain is for the overall good of the all, that our pain is somehow turns into love for the rest of the multiverse or creation. And it just is something that, okay, maybe it could potentially be true, but it just also, if you want to be on the other side of that coin, is the question of, in the same way that third world countries suffer, well, for, and generally is connected, their suffering is connected to the wealth and the comfort of the first world. That just pulling from one source repeatedly, raping one source and giving it to another. And I just really hope that that's not the case, because as above, so below. But these two things definitely make me wonder about that. What is really going on here. Okay, and so then Crystal N, her story, she sees three blue beings, and again, no sexual identity, no features, just pure love. So almost very similar to a lot, and most especially to Marilyn's experience of the blue and white being. The thing that stuck out to me in her experience was when she spoke about the archways and the space that is the birthplace and a departure place for souls. This reminded me a lot of John Davis's experience, where he was able to see the same place, like where the souls come in and where they leave, and it had archways. It looked like a kind of a Greek building. So I do wonder if there's some kind of connection there or not. And yeah, so that's pretty much that on her experience. And then the final and very elaborate experience was Alma B. And there's just so much to talk about here. I mean, she can, a lot of people see the eye, the eye of God. She kept calling it she kept calling it the glistening eye of God, right? So that was her term for it. But, you have this all-seeing eye in a lot of places and in a lot of NDEs. So this was interesting in that respect. But she also did as well see these beings that not only were blue beings, but she found out they were like her. Like these were just, these were the souls or the people that she had known and loved. So it almost makes you wonder, do we become these blue beings when we go to the other side? And I actually, now that I think about it, goes back to Thomas B's experience, where he looked down at one point and saw the same glowing colors within himself. So he was like these beings. And I also forgot to mention that during Thomas B's experience, one of the beings accidentally said, "Welcome back." Like that's also a place where he's been before. So there's a lot of just hopefully not sinister weirdness happening here, because it does feel like, I just hope that the whole amnesia thing is something we signed up for. It isn't as sinister as it seems. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. But so back to Alma, she had the experience of let's see here. She had the experience of thinking that she was holding up a line, which was just kind of funny, but just repeatedly being told to be still. And I mean, it's up to you to determine if you feel like this eye really was the eye of God or something else. It felt very mechanical to me, but that's just maybe how I'm reading it. And it seemed as if it was reading her. And again, if we think of God as being omnipresent and just being all powerful, you wouldn't think that it needed an eye to read something. It seems very mechanical to me, personally. And let's see. So yeah. So she saw her paternal and maternal relatives in line, and it just seemed like it was a big joke on her, like as if everybody had like a secret joke that they're smiling and they're watching her, but they're not really communicating. So it did feel as if something was being withheld, but in a, and not like a sinister way, but just maybe like kind of like a, like it's just like a inside joke, and they just know they can't share something with her, but they find it humorous, I guess. So I kept getting that energy as well. And I just want to make sure I describe, what was the people again? Let's see. It was interesting when she went into, beyond the gate and was able to see what was happening in that city. And so it was just a lot of people at tables helping, whether just individuals, groups, or even larger groups of beings. And I actually had a dream or a vision similar to that years ago, now that I think about it, where I was at the table with my ancestors, my actual, people that I knew, and some of them might have been alive at the time, but just at a table with them, telepathically speaking and looking at maps and stuff like that, and trying to just fix something, like trying to, and a lot of ancient texts and things on the table. It was a very interesting dream, but I do feel like that whole moment just came back to my mind, because I've always wondered, was it really a dream, or was it something more real than a dream? Because of the telepathic aspect of it. And this is before I knew anything about telepathy being the main form of speaking on the other side. So I do go back to that dream every now and then and question. And so these beings being blue, and in her thinking she's going towards the city, and then all of a sudden waking up in the hospital, it's just another one of these stories where it seems you just got to wonder, what are we meant to do here before we're done? And let's see what else. Oh yeah, so the other big thing about her is that they seem more like water, right? So it says the people were all water, like a bathtub filled with pure water. So this again is just the level of just, I don't know. I have no clue what to think about that. No clue what at all. But just going back to the colors of the souls, I do also wonder, especially after reading what Michael Newton said about the colors of the soul, maybe when these beings are presenting themselves to someone who needs to be able to see a person or a body, maybe they are showing their colors, but they're also in the form of a body. So maybe these blue people are really just blue level souls, and they're just presenting themselves in a blue form so that we can comprehend it. And I also want to mention before I even close is that this also brought to mind the NDE of Trey, who saw the blue and purple lights that helped him during his NDE during a very hard time. So, all in all, it's only these 5 stories only bring more questions, but I just really hope that we can work together. I already had somebody who commented after the first video, part 1 of this, and gave me some insight on who these blue beings might be. So, please leave a comment in the description, your own experiences, other people's experiences, your thoughts, and let's try to work out these puzzles together. Blessings.